Hello Norheimers. In this video, I'm going to do a journey over one of the more forgotten metas in the IK world and give a brief history alongside with some build tips. This meta was known as the dual mage meta. Usually it meant that in a march you may so that you have two mages in it. It is a versatile meta that can be applied with basically anything, even for free-to-play water. And back in the day, it was a popular and a surprising counter to the more popular back then hybrid meta. It kind of got its inspiration from the hybrid meta, where you had in the hybrid meta you had two immortals here, Alex and Hannibal, in the forefront, and you had two supports and the dragon that would equip support items. The idea here is in reverse. Why not have both of you attackers in the back line and have your front line act as a support alongside the dragon? One of the main advantages of this meta versus the other was that magical that magical damage cannot be dodged. So you will always have the success of the hit here. This is, for example, applied to water, but you could basically apply it to any other march you run. You could run lightning with a double mage, you could run earth with a double mage. Means very versatile and effective. What would you give these mages? Typically, one would have to go for a crit build, having a crit artifact like this one, crit rate artifact. You can have here whatever you want, but it's good to have a crit artifact and a crit rate here as well. So the main attribute and a sub attribute should have to be crit rate. So you get 33% crit rate. Of course, magical attack bonus here is good as well. Now I currently don't run this as a dual mage, but typically the immortal with the highest crit rate given by the artifact would equip Chase, Spell Disintegrator if you have it, or if you're not, you would equip Nova or Death Breath in your other two slots. Scyther Green made a very good video about Chase regarding this, and in my case, to sustain my point, it's best that I show it to you. So here you can see that I ran it with water. He is superior to me in dragon talent. This is early variation of the single heavy carry mage, where Merlin is a hypercarrier. Here he carries the whole match and everyone else is just a support for Merlin. My case, I think Merlin was the one that had the crit rate artifact. So crit rate artifact with percentage is very important here. No matter what special sub-attribute you have, it is important you have this one. and I usually played it with Chase, Spell Disintegrator. These two are a good choice. I would say core choice. And this third one can be wherever you want. It depends on the situation. Some builds prefer to put Fighting Master here. I didn't, because I will explain later on. I chose here Nova because this gives extra damage over time, and in the long run, where battles are prolonged, we can get more procs, so more activations of Chase. This was me not being VIP 15, so I didn't have all the bonuses, but as you could see, this turned out to be quite good. And here, I had Cleo acting as the damage dealer and using free-to-play skills because at that point, I was mostly free-to-play. I think. So, yep, magical attack bonus here. So this is the characteristic of a double mage. One acts as a general damage dealer, and the other one is the crit dealer. This one maximizes damage over quick periods of time, and this one just provides a constant amount of damage overall. The advantage you get is you get the sudden burst of damage. You provide a burst of damage, and you can see Chase doing work here. Critical hit 40%, so this is typically enough to activate Chase. Spell Disintegrator, well, not the best, but you can see whenever Chase is your secondary damage, or third is not as good, but secondary or first, it means that your immortal is dealing appropriate amount of crit damage, and Chase build is appropriate for it. And you can see here that, well, Cleo, despite being less strong than Merlin, also deals enough damage. Typically in these types of battles, the damage was spread. It depends on who critted first. So either Merlin took the stage or Cleo took the stage. In Lustratia. So here, if we look, Cleo took the stage. So it's always going to be a battle against these two, but the main point is you have two sources of damage. If one of them fails, the other one will pick up. If both of them remain at top of the if both of them remain with sufficient amount of health, they would both share the damage. I understand that beating water may not be as fascinating, but maybe this was a little more fascinating. Here, Merlin took the stage and Theo was in the background. I guess that the skill, the dark breath affected Cleo, I guess. Let's look here. Yep. Oh, I switched it here. So in this case, I see that I switched for Cleopatra to be the critical damage dealer with the artifact, and I use a combination of Novas and Chase. I was experimenting at that point and typically found Novas to be during prolonged battles, as we had back then, as you can see. We have 1 minute battles. We don't get those anymore. Over 1 minute battles, Novas do sufficient amount of procs Chase sufficiently for it to be the main damage source. You can see here it's 6 million versus here where Chase could only be on, let's see, 4.5 million. So I had to play around with it, and you can experiment, of course, this is your choosing, and it's part of the configuration of the match. Also, I would like to show that this match stood against hybrid as well. I guess it can win against Earth as well. You can see that even if I was fighting Earth, I still had the higher Dragon 10 specialization, and here I use the classical Merlin crit. Point was that this could be used as an alternative to this mixed march. And it performs sometimes quite good. Notice I'm always fighting here in upper battle, so wind, earth should have won. So this was one example of dual mage or double mage meta. Other examples, if you search the internet, you will find that it's also frequently used in fire. I guess that's where it's more popular, because you also have the fire dragon that increases critical damage. And because fire typically uses a lot of buffs to end the fight quickly, and hitting off of Chase is a quick way to end the fight. It gives that fast-paced damage. But I guess you could see, but back in the day this worked against lightning as well. Typically a higher level lightning. I'm looking at the talents, they're more developed than what I had back then. So this is a free-to-play double mage setup concept that worked for me in the past as I switched to later on. I also had it on the alt at one point. So the alt Ray's cousin used to do double mage with Himiko. I managed to get her, and my mate lost. I transitioned back then to Himiko Arts with the classic demonic contract and battle stance. Demonic and battle. The dual shieldmen meta, if you want. With a hypercarry mage in the backline. And this is an example that you can win with the dual mage setup in fire. Because 2 damage dealers are better than 1, and this is 4 burst damage. So let's look at this example of mage meta. Here I think I didn't have a good Himiko artifact. You can see it's not as good. Let's not say the T word. But I opted to put Fighting Master here because her ultimate banishes the other opponent, and I didn't want her to get stunned, so I wanted her to banish the other mage. And at that time you couldn't put Fighting Master to avoid it. I think. Oh wait, you could. My bad. You could. Nay, it was in the period after they fixed it. And here for Emperor's Vow, you can see I run Chase and Toxin Nova and Death Breath, because I didn't have Spell Disintegrator back then. I couldn't afford to get it for my ult. It is a KVK skill, but I couldn't afford to get it for my alt back then. So this is, my alt is a pure free to play, nothing ever spent. Himiko from the Chaos, from the Sparks. So Himiko is the damage dealer and the other mage is the crit one. You can see that I respect the rule that it must have a crit rate artifact. This is mandatory if you want to run a crit mage, regardless. Nothing stops you running it without one, but this is for the desired effect and results. Let us see here a little bit. Not my stats I'm interested in, so the same concept applies. Damage is split between these two, and chase comes second, so this means that it is good enough. Chase has to be second. If it's third, it's consider changing, consider not, your choice. But you can see that even here it doesn't really matter, so the other mage will pick up where the other one may lack. This is a good advantage to have. And this precisely makes it possible to avoid using the precious skill Fighting Master on this sort of build, because in theory it doesn't need it. Because you have two damage dealer, if one gets one-shotted early on, the other one can pick up. If both of them get two-shotted, well, that's a loss. But if both of them get heavily wounded, then the overall damage just reduces, but it's still consistent enough because you have two damage dealers. Let me show you here another example of what I mean. When crafting such matches, I do it in open arena because I will explain later on why the popularity of it suddenly vanished. And in my alt, I don't use it now, at least for now. So I think this one is a good example. I built here a fire dual mace setup. This was also popular back in the day. By that I mean Baldwin and Empress Wu. Baldwin does the damage, as you can see by the skills, and Empress Wu is expected to do the critical damage, based off of chase. And as you can see here in this battle, Baldwin got sniped by the dragon rat. And in this scenario, Wu was left to clean the other team. And you can see it's pretty fast. It cleared pretty fast. Here is an example where Chase is in the third position, so that might indicate that it's not a good skill by any means, but consider also that you are here in a 21-second fight. Also, if you look, every skill 100% crit. So it's just Chase's limitation here. The Imperial Fire has the overall higher damage rate, and there wasn't enough time for Chase to build up its damage. Same can be said with Baldwin, because both of their skills have a high damage rate, 600%. She has 600% as well. So a single target, 600%. You're basically looking at the sniper lineup. This was why it was popular back then. But I would like to draw attention upon the core concept again. Damage. One mage is responsible for magical damage. And even though this is open arena, I use here critical rate because this lineup is sustained by critical. So I use weakness here to sustain Chase for Wu, So if I use weakness, I could also go for a crit rate artifact here. It's always the better choice. And I can see I use Heart of Arcana here, just because we are in open arena and we can. This may not be the best selection of skills, but this is this is not a free-to-play lineup, so you could get this from Frost. Oh, you can get this. This is free-to-play. This is not free-to-play, but you could substitute Death Breath instead if you want. Or, Death Breath. But mainly I see players who have corrosive power use that here. Not on Woon, on Baldwin. Or Psionic Tide is also a very good skill. Paid skill, but very good for this lineup. But anyhow, this isn't the free-to-play one because it has Heart of Arcana. But you could swap it for... let's see... could swap it for Rage Blessing because it goes well with fire. Yeah. But let me get back to what I was trying to say here. Even if one mage is gone, I have the another one, and this other mage can totally carry. Maybe this one wasn't a perfect fight, but you can see here the other mage totally carried here. The battle was also prolonged, and Chase was the main damage dealer because her health got so low that 600% damage rate just wasn't enough. But Chase procced so many times because of the long battle that it overpowered the other ones. So yeah, this is the advantage of the dual mage. So, why has this dual mage not exist as much in Conquest? It doesn't even exist or starts to fade out in S2 as well, because of the specialization. You can see here that we have access to these specializations early in the Season 2, and when we got them, we were already Conquest. These require books obtained via Lit Well of Times and shards. These smaller nodes require magic type books. When you run a dual mage, you have to specialize both of them in order to get value out of the composition. Because in IK, as in many other yings of this type, attack is usually the best defense, and because of the snowball effect, if your mage is underdeveloped, it would just get slaughtered by the other one. We have seen this often. Think about in main marches versus secondary marches. Even though your secondary march is specialized, it won't end a main march because it lacks these nodes to be able to put the immortals on an equal field or an equal plane with your opponent. And inside the dual mage, you cannot afford at the start of the season to specialize both of them equally hard, because these books are what will cap you. Then these books are what will cap you, so you will have either one mage who's on par, or another mage who's not on par. So if we assume at the start of season 1, or at the end of season 1, as you enter season 2, these are all maximum at max health. So this is at max health, this is at max health, this is also at max strength, and this is also at max strength. Say both of them are 1x. This will give your March a total attack power of 2x. And 2 times the HP. Now, if one of your immortals starts lagging behind, he won't be an 1x anymore, because the other immortals will pummel him to the ground because they can snowball him. So he doesn't retain his 1x if he's not specialized. Because the other immortals, which will be specialized, will be much stronger than him, will be able to resist his damage, and he will later begin to fall off. Even if you went and spread, even if you were a whale and you would have done all the trials, you couldn't max them earlier than any other whale. So, by focusing on both of them, you lose strength while in this season, while you're in the process of specializing, and this one slowly begins to fall to 0 point something 8x, while you continue to invest in this one, and it will give you some value. So this one will continue to grow, however much it can grow. 1.7, 2. However, even though you have the same HP for both, because this one takes more damage, you will not get the added benefit of having an extra damage dealer, because they simply don't do well. So here is a report. Let's go into the arena. Let's look at some of my reports. I've lost here quite badly, and let's see. This was my main march, and this is how much a secondary march, which is maxed by the way. Both the dragon portrait is almost maxed, but the tree is maxed against a fully specialized team. Even my Alex here is specialized to a degree. But still, he doesn't make a sufficient dent on them. Even if my Marlin is completely specialized, he doesn't give out the same damage. 1 million. So the proportions don't get to stay the same, as you can't specialize them all at the same time. And this is the main problem with any dual type marches, whether we're talking about dual mage or hybrid. You need to specialize them. Now, if you look at the immortal specialization for support, you can see that this one has an option where it gives extra energy regen and damage increase. Specializing this one doesn't require the same type of books, only in these nodes. So here you will be also kept by the same books, but this is the only place. So by choosing to focus everything on a single damage, you gain 2 extra skill slots that could help sustain your other immortal, your main damage immortal, and for backliners, only you have, well, for backliners and for frontliners, you have the assist and the guard option. This allows it to transfer, allows all incoming damage to hit the support, so the one having the skill. And what this effectively makes it do is extend your immortal's HP to full. Presumably that it activates. So by having her here, I get the same, almost same benefit of having 2 HP. So I have this HP here, and I have this HP here, and whenever assist makes a link, basically this HP will get consumed and this one will always remain at full power. And if this one, and if you know the IK basics, a troop at full power is more desired than 2 troops at half power, because both of their powers will go down. This is another consequence of this dual mage, because AoE type skills will hit both of them. You don't need to use Fighting Master, but AoE skills will hit both of them. In this case, AoE skills will hit only one of them. This is the one you are interested in. If this one gets taken out, okay, nothing you can do. But if this doesn't get taken out and you have the link between them, then you have effectively doubled your HP, so you get the same 2 HP potentially for where it counts off of this combination as well. And I say for when it counts because you're typically not interested in the health of this immortal. So if it activated and she died, she did her job, because this one gets to remain at full health. This doesn't always happen, but this is a risk assessment, so players often prefer to think about it this way, and you keep the advantages of having, how to say, 2 times the HP for the damage dealer. This is even better when it activates, because this one will be your main focus. You will focus all your books into this one, and she will be able to be at full power all the time. Plus, the other specialization effect gives it 40% extra damage, so let's assume this one stays. You focus everything on her. She gets to about 2 times as strong as she was before. Adding in the 40% would get her to 40% out of 2x is 0.8, so it will get her to 2.8x. So she gets a damage increase. Her health is conserved by assist, so you're basically almost getting the same effect as if you had your dual mage, each having a 1.5 each, which is harder to obtain via the specialization once you get it. So hopefully this makes it clear in the world of IK. Thanks for hearing me out till this point, and I hope to catch you all later with another video. Bye now.